This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 406 for Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Joining me this week, Lou Page is back from Zombies Ate My Podcast, and of course, you can find him at Busy Zombie Lord on all the social media that matters. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Feels like I was just here.
I think that's true. I think it's only been a couple of weeks. We actually had some fun stuff to talk about this week, and I wanted Lou to come back specifically because of all the indie games that he is into and has a broader knowledge of than I do. And that is because the Steam Summer Sale is on. So we're going to be diving into some of our picks and looking closely at that in the next little bit. First thing off the top of the show, though, I want to send people over to another podcast, which seems like a strange thing to do. So don't do it now. Wait until you're done listening to this, and then go and check out the Spawn Chunks episode 146. And that is our interview with Brandon Pierce, aka King B-Dogs, who is a Minecraft gameplay developer at Mojang Studios. We interviewed Brandon about a week and a half ago, and so far the episode has been well received. Brandon had said to us privately afterwards that he had a really good time. It is jam-packed. I will let you know now. It might be something that you have to listen to on its own. You might not be able to do a lot of other things while you're listening to, because Brandon is very knowledgeable about game design, has a lot of really interesting opinions about community involvement in game design. So even if you're not necessarily a Minecraft player, yes, the conversation does focus on Minecraft in some spaces, but a lot of the things that Brandon talked about are really more about broader game design, community involvement, especially when you have like a forever game like Minecraft, like an open world constantly being updated. So I would imagine, situations like, Satisfactory and No Man's Sky and other games like that. MMOs, I would imagine, probably have a lot of similar kind of lines that they walk in terms of community involvement. Anyway, he's a real pleasure to talk to. I'm really proud of the interview. Tip my hat to Johnny, who has met Brandon in other digital summits and stuff through his networking, and then was able to kind of orchestrate the scheduling to get Brandon on the show. And it was fun. It was a nice checkbox as a professional podcaster to be just kind of like, I'm doing this show. It's about this video game. It's like a very focused show. It's a news show. We have fun with it, but we take it seriously. And that was the first time in my 10 plus years of podcasting that I've actually interviewed like a developer or someone that had worked on a thing that I was talking so much about. It was really fun.
Interviews are always intimidating. We've had plenty over the last few years with Zamp. And whenever we get them, I'm always super. Despite the fact that I'm on here once a month and I do my show twice a month. I'm a socially awkward guy, especially when it comes to new people. So whenever we do interviews, I'm always like, what do I say? I don't want to sound like an idiot. What do I do? So good on you for this.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I know what you mean, though. I'm the same way. Like I'm not a nervous person. I'm a pretty confident guy. After 10 years of doing podcasting, it's helped me a great deal with any kind of public speaking. I've done a number of panels at conventions where I've either been on the panel or I've been running the panel. And so having that kind of presence has helped a lot. But there's still moments, depending on who it is and what the situation is and how much investment I have in the situation, where I still get, kind of butterflies beforehand. But the thing about talking with people on the Spawn Chunks about Minecraft, what's really nice about that is that you have that thing to fall back on that you're both very passionate about, and that's Minecraft, right? We had that with Comics Coast to Coast as well, back when I was doing that show with Brian Dunaway. And we would interview a new artist every week. And a lot of times it would be someone that would be kind of I would consider like a peer, someone that would be a professional artist or someone that would have a day job and then do the webcomic on the side, and people that I would look laterally to like, oh, they're doing that really well and this is really cool. Wonder what I can learn from them and stuff like that. Every now and again, we'd land an interview with someone like Scotty Young from Marvel, or Dave Kellett, who draws Sheldon and was one of the pioneers of webcomics. And just
Right.
like steeped in their career, very successful, very knowledgeable. And then I would get nervous. Like I had to like get it off my chest before both the Dave Kellett and the Scotty Young interviews, and just be like, okay, look, I need to say this now so I'm not a bundle of nerves the entire show. Like, I'm a huge fan. This is a thrill. It'll wear off. I'll hit my groove. Just like bear with me. Because it was surreal to be able to talk to both of them.
I'll never forget the first time we interviewed anybody for Zombies Ate My Podcast. It was somebody had reached out to us. They had written a book, and it was a zombie book that took place during uh the Byzantine Empire. And so I ended up having to do research so that I knew what the Byzantine Empire was and how long it reigned and everything else. And the reason the guy wrote the book during the Byzantine Empire is he was a professor in Washington State who taught history at a university, and his other hobby was zombies. So he wrote a book that used both of his hobbies. And so I was like, I need to like know what I'm talking about when I ask this guy questions, because he's way smarter than I probably am.
It's the kind of thing where like I recognize that name. I can't spell it. Google had to correct me.
Yep.
But if you had have asked me, Joel, when did that happen? I would have been just like, no bloody clue.
Yeah.
Not a sweet clue. And it turns out it was from what, like 300 BC to 1300 AD or something like that?
It's like the Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages, yeah. Like it just, and it's the kind of thing that flashes up in a documentary. And they put the dates at the bottom of the screen. And you can't read them fast enough, or you're just not going to remember this. It's not really, part of the discussion. But that's
and
funny.
that was our first interview, and I remember saying to Ryan afterwards, I don't like these.
I will say, the most awkward situation that I've ever been in, and I'm not going to name any names, mostly because I don't remember them. It was when we would get approached on Comics Coast to Coast and be requested to interview someone.
Yeah.
And it was always forced. It was always a situation where we would find a way to like talk to the creator in some way. But we'd always go into it with like a little bit of dread if we decided to go ahead with it and just kind of like roll the dice. Now, sometimes it worked out, but like very seldom do you get someone that says, hey, I should be interviewed, and then email the podcast and say, you should interview me. Or if it's their PR person. And every once in a while, if it was like a book project or anything that was supporting, artists or a group of artists, we thought, well, that's worth maybe sharing around. And then you'd get a copy of the thing that they're working on. And then after you realize that they're not going to send you the book until you agree to interview them. But then you agree to interview them, they send you the book, and you're like, this is terrible. Like, what are we going to say about this?
We've really lucked out most of the time with Zombies Ate My Podcast. We get a lot of book people, and Ryan and I have agreed now that if somebody wants us to talk about their book, we don't want to interview them anymore. We're so tired of interviewing authors.
Yeah.
Because we've done probably about at least a dozen interviews with people that have written books or things of the like. And it always goes the same way. The only person we've agreed that we would have back on the show if we needed to is we interviewed the woman who wrote the Walking Dead cookbook.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
And before she wrote the Walking Dead cookbook, she did a zombie survival guide cookbook. And her publisher reached out to us and we interviewed her. And she's the most researched guest we've ever had. She literally researched our podcast and knew who we were before she sat down with us.
Oh, that's
and
nice.
knew what our topics we were just going to interview her and then like clip it into the show. And she was like, no. I want to stick around for the whole episode because I know what you watched for a movie this week and I want to talk about it. And we were like, okay.
Nice.
And
very
so
cool.
when she wrote the Walking Dead cookbook, she reached out to us again and was like, hey, I did another cookbook. can I come back on? And we were like, sure. And Ryan and I have agreed that if she ever does another cookbook or something and she wants to come back on the show, she's probably the only author we'd have back on
Nice.
in any time, any time forward.
We're really looking forward to talking with more people about like on the Spawn Chunks. We've got legs in with other content creators now. We've got inroads into now that we've talked to somebody at Mojang. I feel like it might be easier to potentially talk to other people at Mojang Studios.
Yeah.
Brandon let slip that there are other people at the studio that do listen to the Spawn Chunks, which is just a nice feather in the cap when you're doing a podcast about a game. But Brandon was very generous with his time. I believe he was on vacation and he ended up sticking around for the full render distance. For people that don't know, the render distance is the extended version of the Spawn Chunks podcast, and it's available only to patrons. So there's about 15 to 30 minutes of extra content at the beginning and the end of the recording. And really it's just me and Johnny, shooting the shit and catching up or whatever. In this case, we were talking to Brandon and we were talking about like his vacation and work conditions during COVID and just like how that has affected everybody. And so it was still an interesting conversation. It just wasn't necessarily Minecraft focused. And it's more casual. There's more joking around and stuff like that. But it was cool. Brandon was super generous with his time, which is really nice when you've got like, it's so funny. Like I see the interviews and I see the little like 6 to 10 minute clips that Minecraft will put out on their YouTube channel talking about the changes to the game. And you're talking with like Agnes, who's like the game director. I think that's her title. She's the boss applesauce on Java Minecraft, pretty sure. And she's talking about the game, and you got Brandon was on camera one week, and you got a bunch of other developers, and they're just so down to earth that you have to remind yourself that Minecraft is the most downloaded video game on the planet, right? Like these people are making a game for 10 million plus people that at least own it, if not are active playing it. So the amount of pressure and the amount of they're big deals, and they're just so down to earth. They're so pleasant to talk to, or I should say, Brandon was very pleasant to talk to. I've interacted with a couple on stream and on Twitter, but when I see them in the videos, they're just so genuinely nice. Like it doesn't feel like some sort of corporate video. Like you see announcements from like Microsoft and like the bigger things like Apple, and they seem so formal. And the Mojang Studios is just so chill about everything, and I'm sure it's got a lot to do with like Swedish culture and stuff like that, but it was really cool. I'm looking forward to like diving in and more and exploring a little bit more of that side of Minecraft, because I've been on the other end of it for quite some time. Speaking of video games though, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, the Steam Summer Sale is on. It's running between June 24th and July 8th of 2021, and there are a metric ton of games on sale, ranging from something simple like 10% to 20% off, all the way down to like 80% off, depending on what you want to do.
Yes, and for me, I'm not as much into the AAA, Ubisoft, EA games, but I will admit this Steam sale, I did buy the Mass Effect Legendary Edition because it's like 20% off, and I've been itching to play through those games again. It's been a long time.
I would love to as well. I just don't want to play them on PC. Like I've got a 55-inch television. I'd much rather play it there, right? So I'm waiting for that to come to like Xbox Game Pass or something.
Yeah, I got it. I think it was like $42 or something when all was said and done, and that's fine. It's 3 games, and it's probably 300 hours of gameplay for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm gonna get my money's worth.
Yeah.
But my only gripe is I started Mass Effect 1, and it's the least polished of the 3 games.
Yeah.
They have, for the Legendary Edition, man, they up-res the graphics. They didn't do anything else for Mass Effect 1. It's still got bugs from the original Xbox game. It's still super unbalanced. I went into one mission, and it should be really easy, and you step out of cover for 1 second, and the guy hits you with a thing, and it kills you. And so I had to reload my save and do it like 7 times before I got it right. And it wasn't because it was particularly hard. It was just the AI is so stupid that they don't think about tactics. The enemy is literally like, they're willing to sacrifice themselves as long as they kill you.
Right.
So they'll just charge you, and you'll be like, "Wait, they're just running at me. Why are they just running at me?" And like you're like, this isn't a firefight. This is a guy literally running at me, and then he hits me with a thing that blows him and me up.
Yeah.
Like, ugh. And so the game is full of those kind of bugs, but the story's good. So I mean, I'm probably already halfway through the game at this point, and I I'm gonna try and rush through the rest of the game so that I can get to 2 and 3, which are the much better games.
Yeah, I remember the big change from 1 to 2. I've only played through Mass Effect the one time on Xbox 360, and I was pretty frustrated with 1. What kept me going with 1 was the story and the dialogue choices, and that was a new thing for me, so the novelty of that kind of kept me going through. I remember hating driving around. There was some
Yep,
sort of
that
car thing.
there's a mech thing you have to drive around on planets,
Yeah.
and I get the idea of what they were trying to do,
Mm.
but it's not fun.
No. Yeah,
It's the one part of the game it's really getting annoying to me because I am trying to do one of the things that the Legendary Edition does is it comes with all of the DLC for all 3 games that maybe you didn't play.
mm.
And there's a bunch of DLC for the first game I didn't play. So I've been trying to do that stuff, and they're all really small, minor, kind of dumb fetch quests. And every single one of them makes you drive the mech around on the surface of a planet. You never just go to a station and answer people's questions or do something. You always end up having to go to the surface of the planet and drive around the mech. And I'm like, none of these are fun.
Hmm. Yeah, it always sucks when you have a really good game that's really good at stuff. Like Mass Effect, on top of being just a good story, well written, it is an excellent cover shooter. Like it really nails that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not a driving game. So like why?
Nope.
I had that worry when I started playing No Man's Sky. Because you can walk around and collect stuff, and like that kind of first person experience is pretty solid. But then you got to get in a spaceship. And I found it took a long time for me to get used to flying around the spaceship, especially when they give you something that handles like a bus, despite the fact that it's the size of a motorbike when you get into it. To start off, it's not until later when you can find a better ship with better handling and upgrade things that you feel like you're a lot better at flying around. And even then, you're still flying around with a mouse and keyboard. At least I was on PC. If people are playing on console, it's a different experience. But I found that thing with No Man's Sky, like it's definitely an excellent exploratory game, but that wants to be a building game too. And it's not very good at it. At least the last time I put any real effort into building a No Man's Sky, it was really frustrating with the way that things snapped. Colors of things are all weird. Like you're building a space station, and your options are wood, concrete, or metal walls. And you're like, why wood for starters? And then 2, why does everything look crappy? Like, why would I build these odd-looking industrial concrete walls when I'm flying a spaceship that shoots lasers? And they had these prefab systems like tubes and cubes that would all connect together like toys when we were kids.
It's one of the things that drove me crazy with the last Fallout game is they gave you the ability to build your own town where you could like lay pallets down and then build walls around the pallets and build houses and other dwellings. And it seemed like a really cool idea at first. But then Bethesda artificially made the game longer because part of the plot is you're trying to establish these community hubs so that you can travel from town to town to town. And so all of the towns is, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. There's trading posts in towns and little shops, and there's probably close to 50 of them. And whenever you get to them, they're all dilapidated, so you end up having to spend 5 hours trying to build a new town. And you're like, and when you build the starting town you're in, it's the biggest area, so it's fun. I built a tower, I built a spy thing so I could watch across the map and look. That was neat. Then I went to the next one, and it was like, oh yeah, here's this little thing. You've got to build a town, set up weapon defenses, or the next time you come back through, all these people will be dead. And it was like, and then it did it to me again. And then it did it to me again. And then it did it to me again. And it was all super generic, and it artificially extended the game. And then the other thing too is they give you like 9 different ways to build the town. And I'm like, of course I'm going to use the steel walls. Why would I build my walls out of tires? Why? You're
Yeah.
giving me the option to do steel. I want things to look nice. I don't want everything to look like junk. It just it gets old real fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Fallout, a lot of the Fallout titles are on sale as well.
Yes, they are.
I've got a few others on the list. Speaking of No Man's Sky, actually, despite me saying it's not a very good base builder, it's a really good kickback experience if you want to just fly around and explore space and take care of those kind of things. And that's on for 50% off right now. And I don't know if I could recommend the game at $60 Canadian, but at $30 Canadian, yeah, I'd say you're going to get your money's worth. You're going to play it for at least 6 hours. Even if you don't like it, you're going to explore things around for at least a little bit of time. The other things that are on my list that I have played are Oxygen Not Included is 60% off at $11 Canadian.
I've been eyeing that all week.
It is worth it. At
Is
$10,
it?
100% worth it. I don't.
Is it okay?
I think it might even be possibly worth it at full price. I don't think I paid full price. I bought it at Christmas time, so it was like, Boxing Day. It's like 20% off, whatever it was. But it's such a cheap game anyway. Like it was like $27 regular price. So I think I may have paid $20 for it. So, but that to me is worth it. There's also a new DLC that's out. I think that's included with it, called Spaced Out. The Oxygen Not Included, for those of you that don't know, is a colony simulator. So you've crashed on an asteroid. You were supposed to crash on the planet or land on the planet and start a new colony, but you've crashed on an asteroid. So you've got to find water, maintain heat and safety, and you got to build sanitation and power and all these different things inside of this asteroid. And so as you're creating power, you're creating CO2s, you have to clean the air. And what's really cool about it is that you have all these little, I can't remember what they're called, duplicants, I think. And you tell them what to do. I need you to farm. I need you to mine. I need you to mop the toilets or whatever it is. And so it becomes a bit of a task heavy, like just one more thing kind of game. But the art and the sense of humor, like as a cartoonist, it's beautiful. It's 2D. It's just straight. It looks like an ant farm, and they're hilarious. They run around. They do silly things. If they're feeling sick, they barf. If they're feeling like they've got diarrhea, then they hold their stomach and they run for a toilet. Like it's just all kinds of really, really, really fun mechanics and things to explore. It's very, very well done. Worth taking your time with it. Like it's worth just really taking it slow and going thoughtfully through things. But I thought it was really rewarding. I got a good number of streams out of it around Christmas time. I've always wanted to go back, but I'm very into Minecraft right now on stream because of the new update. But absolutely worth 60% off. Like that's a no-brainer. Same with this next one, Titanfall 2. I haven't completed the game. I didn't pay for it because it's part of Xbox Game Pass. So I guess technically I'm paying a subscription, but I got my Xbox Game Pass really cheap on Amazon around Boxing Day. So I bought like 6 or 8 months at a time. But Titanfall 2 is 80% off on Steam. It's $8. I would spend $8 to play the first couple missions. Like it's a very well done single player. You don't have to worry about Titanfall 1. Titanfall 1, I believe, was multiplayer only. But Titanfall 2 has got a single player mission. Our mutual friend Ryan recommended Titanfall 2 to me on Xbox because he knew I was looking for a first person experience. And he just said, like, just play through the story. They get you caught up in the first 30 to 60 minutes of gameplay. And then after that, you're on a mission and you're doing all kinds of cool stuff. There's some interesting mechanics that keep it fresh, like running on walls and jumping and stuff. But it's a really good feeling shooter. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel hard to master. It doesn't feel too nitty gritty. I am not the best with a controller on the Xbox with shooters, and this felt pretty good. Like if I'm pointing to shoot at somebody, I could pretty confidently get them. I found one of the boss battles, which isn't a boss fight necessarily. It's more like a mob, like a defend the tower sort of thing, from a bunch of enemies. Challenging. I eventually did beat it, but it's one of those things where like it took 3, maybe 4 times to beat it, but it didn't take 7. You know what I mean? Like it's just hard enough where you're like, okay, I need to focus and get better at this. I can't just spray and pray. Like I have to really kind of figure what's going on here. But I really liked it. It's a beautiful game too. My gosh, is it pretty? At least on the Xbox Series X. I don't know. I don't know what it would look like on PC. I guess it would depend on what your settings are. But
One thing I want to recommend specifically because it is $2.99. A game I got a lot of enjoyment out of a couple years ago called Halcyon 6, Starbase Commander. It's sort of a play on Deep Space Nine.
okay,
You're like the Federation, and you're put on this station that's been wiped out by some kind of attack, and now you've got to build back the space station. And you start out with like two Starfleet commanders, and then by the end of the game, you've got like 20 Starfleet commanders and a fleet of ships, and you have to like send your fleets of ships to the nearby planets to like get supplies and do other things. And those segments are done kind of like RPG style gameplay, and there's a little bit of you've got to build you've got to clear out the space station because it's a dump, so you're going down into like the bowels of the ship fighting monsters that have like made it their home so that you can build back the space station. And then in the meantime, as the game goes on, you find out that there's like a Borg like alien race that's trying to take over the universe, and so you've got to like send ships to help defend other planets from the Borg. And it's a mix of a bunch of things. But Halcyon 6 Lightspeed edition is $2.99 right now. It's normally about $15.
wow.
Yeah, it's a couple years old, but it's a good time. And another recommendation I would say that's worth your money since it's on sale is both Hand of Fate 1 and Hand of Fate 2 are on sale. Um, they're Hand of Fate 1 is $5 and Hand of Fate 2 is like $7. Uh, these games are for anybody that likes the Batman Arkham games. It uses almost the exact same combat system.
Really, I love
Yeah,
those.
yeah. It's a mixture of that and a board game. Uh, the first game begins. You're a traveler who has found this, had made his way to what the guy who's known as the dealer, and he's supposed to be the Hand of Fate. And you're there to decide your adventure, and you're going to play a game with him. And he lays out there's various chapters of the game, and he lays out cards in front of you, and you have to make choices. And depending on your choices, you might end up in a combat scenario where it'll be like, you made the wrong choice. And now the caravan of bandits is coming for you. And then it becomes a Batman Arkham Asylum game.
Wow.
And
Okay.
it's a kind of a mix of that. And as he tells you story stuff, you have to make choices. And some of them are like random things. He'll put 4 cards in front of you, and the 4 cards will be really good, okay, bad, really bad. And he'll mix them up and he'll go, pick one, decide your fate. And you'll have to pick one, and it will change the direction that you go on your path through the game. Um, it's a very neat idea. The first game was kind of rushed. It's excellent. It's not very long. I think it took me like 4 or 5 hours to beat it. Um, but it's very replayable. And the second game is much the same, but the second game has more story, and it kind of explains the first game better. And they're like I said, they're just over $5 right now on the Steam sale. Uh, they're well worth $5 to $10.
There's a number of things that are just, I don't have a lot on my list that's that low because a lot of what I recognize are more, popular games. But there are some things that I would just say, like, I have had access to Forza Horizon 4 for months on the Xbox with Game Pass. Regular $80 on sale for 50% off for 40. I don't know. I'm not the biggest racing game person. I've become a big fan of Forza, looking forward to Forza 5 coming out this fall, day and date on Xbox Game Pass. I don't think I would pay $80 for Forza, but I would pay 40, and that's what it's at right now. It's at 50% off. And that, to me, I have spent way more time in Forza Horizon 4 than I ever thought I would. And I'm not a racing guy, so if you're a racing fan, I would say $40 for Forza Horizon 4 would be right up your alley. I also know that Horizon Zero Dawn has got their
Yep,
series out. on Steam.
Yeah, I think it's 40 or 50% off right now on Steam.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to try that, and I don't have. I know that my Xbox controllers will not work wirelessly with my PC because they work in a different way, but I can just plug them in. I think, and use the USB-C cable
Yep.
to control things that way.
The other thing you can do that I've done with my Xbox is they make a dongle that you could plug into your PC. You push a button and your wireless controllers will pair with your
Right. Yeah,
PC.
because they use a specific Xbox wireless
Yeah, it's
protocol
not
or
it's
something.
not it's not Bluetooth,
No, it's
but
something else.
it's based on Bluetooth technology, but it's like its own signal.
Yeah, proprietary stuff, which is
Yep.
fine. I mean, like, as I do have to charge my Xbox controller fairly often, despite not using the Xbox a lot in the last little while. But I think it's just because I watch a lot of YouTube and I use the Xbox for that purpose. And so, depending on how long it takes for the controller to go to sleep, it's just kind of sitting there on next to me while I'm watching videos. But yeah, I've really been mostly using PC mouse and keyboard for games on stream, especially if I'm trying to stream stuff, because it's just nice to have the keyboard there. And I just, for whatever reason, like I still associate the controller with kicking back on the couch and not
Yep.
sitting at the computer. One of the games that you mentioned, though, a few months ago or a year ago on the show, Disco Elysium is like 30% off, 35% off even.
Yes, and it should be also said that they just did an update. I'm actually gonna probably go back later this summer or in the winter and replay that game.
Oh, nice.
Because the way it unfolds, you can change the direction of the story, and how and where you get to certain points in the story can be established in different ways. And they just did a for the entire game.
Nice.
The original game, it was all text. You had to read a screen. There was no voice acting. They just did a free update for anybody that already owns the game, and it adds voice acting to every character and every dialogue. I'm curious as to see what they do, because one of the things that happens while you're playing the game is your own voice in your own head will talk to you, and I'm curious if they use the same voice depending on which personality in your head is talking, or if each personality gets its own voice.
Ooh, that would be cool. That would be an interesting way to play that game for sure. And I
So
say that only having heard so much of it from you. I've not played it myself.
yeah, like I said, if you're into like choose your own adventure kind of games, that is well worth the price. I mean, I paid full price for it. If I remember, or I got it for 10% off or something like that, and that game occupied me for like a month. So it's definitely if that's your if you're looking for something with a lot of story, that game is awesome.
And that's, I mean, like, when you get down into the $30 Canadian, probably closer to $25 US, you're encroaching on a $20 Netflix subscription, right? And you only have so much time to spend consuming story and entertainment based content in the course of a month. And I find that some games, depending on the price, can easily rival the same amount of time that you would sink into watching, a 13 episode series on Netflix or whatever. And say, I mean, people that don't binge it, let's say you're only watching Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you've got a month, 12 episodes, and then that's your $20 Netflix subscription because you didn't have time to watch anything else. Or you could also spend the same amount, roughly, on a video game like Disco Elysium and get that much, or if in the case of Mass Effect, like a lot more story hours
Oh
out of
yeah.
it. We got to move on, but I want to mention a couple of other things that are just catching my eye here at the top of the page. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I'm about a third of the way through this on Xbox Game Pass. It is currently half price. It's $20 Canadian on Steam. If that's where you hang your Steam hat, if you're not playing Ori on console, then again, 100% worth it. It is a
Yep.
delightful game. It's beautiful. It's so pretty. I play it just to run around sometimes. It's really, really inspiring. I mean, you don't have to be an artist to just appreciate the soft, glowy pleasantness that is Ori. Really inventive too. Like it's not. It doesn't just copy your experience of other platformers that I've found. Like it felt pretty unique as far as things go. There's also another one. I don't see that on right now. What's the other one called? Ori and the Ori and the Blind Forest?
Blind Forest is the first game, and Willow the Wisp is the second game.
Right. So Blind Forest is it on sale? It
I
is.
guarantee it is. It's probably like $5.
So it's not on sale, but it's only $7 Canadian.
Oh, okay.
Oh no,
Yeah,
wait a
that
minute.
makes sense.
Will o' the Wisp. Yeah, Blind Forest is not on sale. It's just that the other one is 50% off, but the first one is like super cheap. So
Yep.
either way, I
Uh,
mean, the first one is what I'm playing. Sorry, Blind Forest is what I'm playing. That at $6? Holy crap! Like that
yeah.
is excellent, excellent value.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, because I've brought it up on the show before, but the board game Gloomhaven now has a digital version that they've been slowly working on for the last year and a half. They just released their second to last content update for it's in early access. They've released their second to last update. There is now a full-fledged like story mode with the game, and all of the characters, board game characters, have been unlocked. All of the items have been added to the game. All the environments have been added to the game. It's been a long process, but that game is now 30% off. And the next content update is going to be the actual board game adventure added to the game, and that's going to be their last update. And that's coming sometime the end of this summer. So if you've heard me talk about Gloomhaven before, a role playing tabletop board game, and it sounded interesting, uh, right now would be the perfect time to buy it on Steam.
Yeah, 25% off. Yeah, I've definitely seen this pop up like in recommendations and stuff. Steam looks at what I've bought already and says you might like this. I've definitely seen that before.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. If you have things at home that you would like to recommend here on the show, send an email to thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Our next episode is going to be recording on the 7th, which is the day before the Steam sale ends. So I'll do my best to get those emails into the show and send out some more recommendations for our listeners to perhaps pick up at the last minute on the Steam sale. I am trying to record the Citadel Cafe and edit and post in the same day this summer. So hopefully I can get that out on the 7th so people at home can listen along and maybe pick up some new things. In a little bit more gaming news, Microsoft's xCloud game streaming is now widely available on iOS and PC. We'll have an article from TheVerge.com linked in the show notes. And this is just a small note because as an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, I have access to this. I haven't used it yet because I don't have a controller that will work with an iOS device, but I do have an iPad Pro, and this could mean that I could play something like Minecraft Dungeons on my iPad as long as I have a fast enough internet connection. I don't have to have my console or my PC with me. I'm enjoying Xbox Game Pass. I just don't seem to have a lot of time to sit down and play other games right now. So I've been feeling guilty about not spending as much time using Game Pass as I should be. But I've got things like Jedi Fallen Order and I think it's the name of the game. And
Yep.
like I said, Titanfall 2 is on there. I've been playing some Destiny 2. I downloaded and played a little bit of Don't Starve the other day. Can't say I'm going to put a lot of hours into that, but it was fun to finally have a chance to explore that and see what that was all about.
The art style of that game is great. The gameplay of that game is not something I enjoy.
I'm not a fan of the dying and starting over. I don't like roguelikes. All the power to people that like them. It's just not my favorite thing. I'd much rather be able to save my progress and go from there and work through a tech tree and all that kind of stuff. I can appreciate the inventiveness and the art style of it for sure. The humor was also pretty good. But yeah, like I'm not a big thing. But anyway, I looked over the full list of games that are available on xCloud. The marketing on this needs a little bit of work. But for those of you that aren't familiar, xCloud is basically servers in the cloud that play the video game for you. And then through your browser, either your Edge or your Chrome browser, you can then log in and play the games that are running on a remote machine and then sending you the video feed, the interactive video feed in your browser. And so you can play the games that are on the list. Most of the games are the same as what's on Xbox Game Pass, but there are a few kind of standout titles that I saw right away because they're on my to play list, which is The Outer Worlds, which got very good reviews.
Yep.
The Wild at Heart, which is new and received a lot of good comments. I believe Ryan recommended it on the show, at least to me privately. And that looks like Don't Starve in terms of the art style. A little bit brighter, more colorful, but it has that like 2D cartoon kind of adventure looked like to it. Gears of War, the series, and of course Halo is available. There are some games. So like when I went through the list, I don't want to play necessarily an indie game on the cloud because I can just download it and play it like that. If I've got access to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, that's not a big deal. What is interesting to me about xCloud is games that my PC would be just like, oh, I don't know if I can run that at max settings, right?
Yeah.
I'd want to be able to try something like, a new Halo game or the Outer Worlds or, something like No Man's Sky and just crank it, just push it to the absolute max and see if that works out, because I have 100 megabits symmetrical fiber here at my apartment. And if that can handle like that kind of load, I would be pretty impressed. And then if it's something as simple as being able to have access to a game like Minecraft Dungeons, or like I mentioned, The Wild at Heart on my iPad, if I'm not at home, then that means that if I was doing some couch gaming with Laura, or if I was babysitting her dog, or like doing whatever, if I had a controller that would work with the iPad, and you don't have to have a controller. Sometimes, depending on the game, if it's like a turn-based game, there's probably going to be on-screen controls.
Yeah.
That would be really, really cool to just have access to a couple of really neat things that you would just never be able to play on the iOS platform and have it streamed to the device. So I'm optimistically curious. There's been a number of companies that have been trying. Google, Amazon, they've all been trying the whole cloud thing, and not successfully as of yet. But Microsoft is one of the companies that has the infrastructure to do it. So we'll see how this folds out. But it's no longer in beta. It's available to people that have an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription. And as per our friend Ryan, you can get that stuff pretty cheap on Amazon around the holidays, or any kind of like big event kind of situation where you're like back to school or all that kind of stuff. Whenever there's a lot of electronics purchasing, generally you'll also see the Game Pass subscriptions go on sale for as little as $10 a month if you buy 6 months at a time. So
Yeah, I have a friend who just there was a bunch of games from EA he wanted to play, but he didn't want to spend money on them because he knew that he'd play them and in like 10 hours he'd beat the game and then he'd never play it again. And EA does their pass thing too, and it was there was exclusive like $1 for a month trial or something like that, like last month. And he's like, I bought it and then it renewed last month for like an extra $5. He goes, so I spent a total of $6. He goes, and I beat 4 games that I don't need to go buy. He goes, and then I canceled my subscription.
Well, and that's the thing that I liked about buying the cards is that I wasn't going to get the next 3 months loaded in, but we ended up in a second lockdown. So as the weather was getting nicer here, like I basically did like end of January, my free month ended. So I did March to May. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll reassess in June to figure out, like, am I going to be spending more time outside? Like, what's the deal? We were still in lockdown here. So I thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to, I'll renew or not renew. I'll redeem the next 3 month, card or code and go from there. But now, like in August, when it says, hey, do you want to renew your subscription? I might be like, not right now. I'm fine. Like most of the time I'm watching YouTube or using, the Xbox as a video center, which I feel guilty about because it's a very expensive set-top box if that's what you're using it for. But I do have other games, and that also might be a time when maybe that's when I'm going to buy a game, like just buy one, have one downloaded, don't need access to Game Pass to play it. Like, for example, I might get like Valhalla or something. I like the Assassin's Creed series. So I might do something like that for the rainy days in August. But I just know that like now that we're coming out of lockdown, I've got my appointment for my second COVID shot. So things are going to be more outside. I think there's going to be more social things happening late July, August for me. So I don't want to just renew it. And that's what's nice thing about the codes is that you can just not redeem them and then start them up again in September or October when the weather starts to get crappy
Yep.
again. But it's the only thing that I'll say is something that I will complain about Xbox Game Pass is that it's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, I get choice paralysis in that I can't decide what I want to play because there's so many times that I'm looking through these things and I'm just like, I don't know what to play.
I have that, and I don't even have a Game Pass.
Yeah. The other thing I find is that a lot of the titles just like, this just isn't, I don't know what this is. I've never heard of this. Like there's a lot of games that look pretty dumb on Game Pass. Now then there's others where it's like Gears of War, but it's just like, God, there's 5 games. Like where do I even start? You know, like just, and that kind of stuff is a little bit tricky. I did start playing the Halo Master Chief Collection and I should just stick to one. That's the other thing is that I get pulled in so many different directions as I get into one. I'm enjoying it. Like I'm enjoying Batman Arkham Knight. And then I got to like an escort mission and I'm just like, I'm checking out. But because it's not the only game I have, right? Like I'm just like, it's so easy to just check out and then play Titanfall 2 or Destiny 2 or whatever it is. So it's been one of those things where it's been an interesting personal social experiment as to whether I feel that it's worth it. I think it's so cheap for me because of the bulk purchase that it's one of those like, well, whatever. It's like basically $6.99 a month for me. If it was a Netflix subscription of $20 a month, I'd be a lot more careful with how many games I was installing. I'd be completing one before moving on. Like I would be a little bit more focused, I think. But because it's just kind of like a free for all, I do know that the Outer Worlds is very high on my list now. That's been installed and I want to have that kind of like a kickback story experience. I know from all the hype around Mass Effect Legendary Edition, I just knew I didn't want to replay a game that I've already played. So Outer Worlds, I think, is going to take that place for me. Moving on to what we've been watching. Do you have anything you want to add to the conversation this week? I've got a couple of things that we can touch on.
I see that you've watched Loki, and I have watched this week's episode already.
I have not watched the latest. That's actually going to be my lunch break after we finish recording. So I can talk up to and including episode 3. I don't want to get into too many spoilers for people in case they need to get caught up. The one thing I'll say, though, is that following up on your recommendation to get into it a couple of weeks ago, I did enjoy episodes 1 and 2. They set things up. It was some interesting kind of like time variant authority world. You've got the timekeepers, which are like more gods / godlike beings in the Marvel universe. Loki's assessment. I can't remember the character's name, but played by Owen Wilson, the guy the agent is kind of
his name is Mobius.
So Mobius and Loki are having this interrogation thing, and I just like the casual, no fear, because there's no powers in the TVA. Like Loki is essentially just a mouthpiece, right? So it's a battle of wits, right, at the table, and I really enjoyed that exchange. Good acting from both of them. It's far fetched, but it seems self aware enough. However, they really lost me in episode 3. And I throw it down to terrible writing, down to the peril in giant quotation marks that had no consequence whatsoever. And the entire time I lost count of the times that Loki and or girl Loki, Sophie, I can't remember how they describe her, have to explain to you, the audience, that the planet is going to blow up. They have 2 conversations. The planet that they're on is doomed and they're going to die. And they're both not trustworthy, so how can they trust one another? They have this conversation over and over and over again. And it is infuriating. It speaks down to the audience and really lost me. It felt like an episode of Arrow or The Flash from their later seasons. Really, really not good.
As I think I said to you pre-show, we got done with it and it was an okay episode, but Erica looked over at me and said, "So, is this like the new Doctor Who?" And I was like, yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
And I will say this, I won't spoil the next episode, but everything that happened in the last episode was kind of like filler buildup for what's going to happen in the next episode of the show.
And this is what
Um,
I'm not used to from Disney Plus. Filler buildup is not something that Marvel generally does on Disney, right?
there's only 6 episodes in this series, so you're only gonna get the episode that came out today and 2 more episodes. Um, and having seen this week's episode, I definitely see things are about to speed up real fast.
Right. Because this
I
is
think that
supposed to tie into the... No, it was WandaVision that was tying into the multiverse.
yeah. Well, WandaVision's tying into Doctor Strange. They haven't said what this is tying into yet.
Hmm.
I have a funny feeling that it might be that that this might be tying into um the new Ant-Man, which is called Quantum Tanium or something like that.
Okay.
And the villain that they're introducing in that they've already cast and announced, it's going to be Kang the Conqueror. And he is a time traveler who goes back in time so that he can try and take over the world and then like start like a never-ending loop where he rules all of time.
Hmm.
That's his villain in the comics anyway. He's kind of a dumb villain, but he's always kind of like a big Thanos-y type villain. And he's being introduced in the Ant-Man movie. So I've heard rumors that this is going to tie into that at some point we might get a cameo from Kang the Conqueror or something like that.
Do you think with all the variants and different versions that they're talking about of Loki, do you think that this is going to tie into Thor: Love and Thunder at all?
Yes.
Yeah. Because
Um,
I realized what I got wrong. The actor's name is Sophia, that plays
her
Sylvie.
character's name is Sylvie. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why Sylvie, they call her Loki, and then they just say, I'm not Loki, I'm Sylvia. It's like, but what? The Time Variant Authority, just the all-knowing, all-powerful thing, says that it's a Loki, and then we just get switched, and it's not a Loki, or she is a Loki, or she's
that sort of gets explained in the beginning of the next episode.
Oh, okay.
Um, I get it's the first 5 seconds of the episode, so I don't think it's really a spoiler. She's been on the run a long time.
Yeah.
They show her being caught as a variant, and she's like 8.
Oh, wow.
So, somebody screws up, and she like pickpockets one of their time travel devices and gets away, and she's been running around for a long time. So she's kind of not a Loki anymore. She's kind of her own thing.
Her own
They
thing.
took her as a kid.
Yeah, they have her in the costume though, which I think is confusing for people. And
Yeah.
I don't want to throw Sophie Martino under the bus, but it's either the dialogue that she's been giving or given or the way that she's delivering her physical presence on screen. It's so deliberate. Like she feels like she's just going through motions. And I understand that it's hard because you're in scenes with or next to scenes adjacent to Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, who are both excellent actors.
Yeah.
But I find her so flat. It's so it doesn't her. She's not convincing at all.
She's not my favorite part of the show.
No, it's not the best thing there.
Oh,
So
and the other thing I should warn anybody, I was glad I sat through it. When the credits roll at the end of the next episode, stay watching. Don't turn it off.
So
Don't skip.
I wish if they're going to do that, I wish they would be consistent with it. Because I do that. Like I let it go until the black credits go. Like you go through the visual credits. Usually with most Marvel stuff, you go through the visual credits, and they've been not doing anything. But I just like the music because they have such interesting music choices for the show.
And they have an interesting music choice on this one as well. It's definitely different from the last one. And then there is a post-credit sequence at the end of this episode and some cameos with some actors you might recognize. And I went, whoa, okay, we're in for something different next week.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. I mean, again, Loki gets points for me for being different. I remember being excited to watch more and then being really disappointed by the end of episode 3. About 2/3 of the way through, I was kind of checking out. I was like, oh, I don't know. Although I have to say, one thing that I did pick up on, they pulled a Daredevil And in the climactic chase sequence in the town with all the asteroids coming down in episode 3, I don't know how long that shot was, but that was impressive.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was some digital stuff going on, but like both the actors were in a single camera shot, no cuts, for a very long time, running around, chase scene, cars blowing up.
Yeah, they end up like on the street, inside a store, back out on the street, and then something blows up, and it's like almost all one take.
Yeah.
You can see where they could have maybe faked a cut and then a cut in, but if they did that, they still did such a good job with it.
Oh yeah, no, I'd have to watch it again to see. I don't know if it necessarily is as long as the Daredevil stuff, but like it's long enough that your brain kind of checks out from being watching the show and going, oh wow, this is one continuous shot. So like there's some interesting things there, and I mean I also say like the set direction and the set design and the production design is just phenomenal. Like I mean the sci-fi planet looks cool, the train looks cool, the city they're in looks cool. I mean, I kind of called the ending. There's an Ark ship trying to get off the planet. I kind of knew what was going to happen. You know, like
yeah, you kind of know what's going to happen. And literally the next episode literally picks up with the aftermath. It's kind of funny. They're both sitting on a rock being like, well, I guess we're going to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious to see where that might go. Unfortunately, like with the sliding scale of things, I did speak very highly last week about Superman and Lois, and episode 11 has come out. I think I might have only talked about up to 9, but I watched 10 and I've now seen 11 as of actually just last night. And also episode 11, disappointing for Superman and Lois. Total filler episode, like classic television mid-season fluff of rehashing a lot of Superman mythos that we have seen countless times before. The starting of the Fortress of Solitude, the learning of his powers, the first save in Metropolis, first day on the job at the planet, first day meeting Lois. Like the only thing that's worth all of that is seeing the acting with Tyler. Oh gosh, Holchin. No, Holchin. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I get it wrong all the time. Him acting as Clark is delightful. He does his own thing, but he pulls in like little hints of other classic things. There's a little bit of Chris Reeves in there, but not much. There's a little bit of other versions, but he definitely owns it. And it's one of those things where like the whole thing is basically like a way of explaining that, spoilers, Morgan Edge has used a Kryptonian device to get inside of Clark's head. Hochlin is his name. Sorry. And so you're seeing all these things as Edge is seeing all these things. So at the end of the day, Morgan Edge, the big bad guy who reveals himself to be a Kryptonian, which is the thing I don't like about this show, is that there's a second Kryptonian on the planet. Like, I just find another way to challenge Superman. Like, I'm just tired of this stuff. And he then knows that Clark Kent is Superman. He's married to Lois and he has 2 kids. And so he threatens Superman's family and gets him to do whatever he wants. And that in turn gets him to basically reprogram Superman. So it's now a mind control, mind swapping plot, which is my least favorite of all. Next to time travel. Like, I hate it. So now we get to watch our favorite superhero, the one that we all love, being an asshole and probably. I don't know how they do this because they've made Superman virtually invincible in this universe, and now he's bad. And the only thing that's probably going to keep him from destroying and killing people are either one, like his heart, like he's going to just find his good feelings and come out of it, or Lois is going to save the day. And it's so infuriating and so frustrating to watch. And I was really enjoying the dynamic between Clark and his kids and like the kind of like farm life versus Superman life. They were doing such a good job with it. And now they've ripped the one thing, or sorry, not the one thing. They've ripped a core aspect of this show, which is Clark, and he's gone because Superman has now been mind controlled, which means he's going to be like Kryptonian all the time. And
Yep.
it's just so frustrating. And it's still well produced. It's still a good looking show, but yeah.
Eric and I have agreed we don't really watch the CW superhero shows anymore. We think that every season is like 24 episodes, and the plot could be wrapped up in like 15, and that there's like 9 episodes of filler every season, and the 9 episodes of filler are just not worth the journey anymore.
They're getting to the point now where like Superman is this super powerful being, like, zips around the planet in the blink of an eye, which means Morgan Edge has all the same powers because he's Kryptonian. I forget his Kryptonian name. I don't really care. And then Edge shows up at the farm, confronts Lois and the two boys. Jordan, the one with powers, tries to blast him with I-beams, and Edge just shoots him back and wins because he's stronger. The only reason that Lois and the two boys are alive is because the script says so. Like, that's it. He could have just completely destroyed them. The only reason he's there is to threaten them so that he can get Superman to agree to do what he wants, to submit to the this mind control thing. Like, it's just infuriating. Like, there's so many holes in the plot.
And then next week, Superman will get free of the thing, and we'll move on with the story again.
Oh, I don't know about that. I kind of feel like this is going to be. I feel like it might be. I'm trying to figure out how many episodes are in the season. It might be 15.
All seasons right now are shorter than they usually are. So
yeah, I've seen that there's 12 revealed in terms of the titles, but I don't see anything beyond that. I think IMDb has 15, but again, like, I don't know what's going on. I'm still going to watch because I've invested enough time into it. And I have to say, like, the first 10 episodes are worth it. Like, it's an excellent kind of like setup and exploratory, show for the things that it's looking at. I was pleasantly surprised, like I said last week on the show. But it's the CW, man. Like, no sooner do I get my hopes up and say this is actually really cool than they do this kind of stuff. And it's like, God, like, could you just stop doing shows like you're writing comic book plots from the early 80s where everything was like time travel and mind control, and just stop it. Stop it.
I like Berlanti, but he needs to hire some new writers.
Yeah, no kidding. Moving on into the Internet Minute, which is, of course, brought to you by you. The Citadel Cafe is 100% listener supported. If you're getting value out of the show, please consider putting a little bit of value back in. You can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Joining at any level will get you an invite to the member-only Discord server. There are multiple levels of rewards, including Discord roles and bonus episodes, stuff like that. Currently at 24 patrons, I checked this morning, which is steady on from last week. Our goal each month, of course, is to have at least one more patron. It's almost July. So if you'd like to be patron number 25, then check out patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe and help us make more podcasts. My pick this week is Lego, surprising no one. But it's a little bit different. It's not a Lego set. I saw a CBC article earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. Lego has eyed making bricks out of recycled plastic bottles. I'll have a link to that article, as well as the recycled materials page on Lego, the Lego Group news post about the new recycled brick and reusable brick program that's happening at lego.com, or not at lego.com, but at the Lego Group. Basically, Lego has found a way to recycle PET plastic discarded bottles, in which they are shredded, cleaned, then not pulped, but like turned into granular kind of plastic bits, and then eventually remolded into a 2x4 classic Lego stud. Like, if you're looking at a Lego brick, that's probably what you remember from when we were kids. Not a specialty piece. It's just like a prototype piece. The idea is that they want to make sure that it meets all the different criteria. So a team of more than 150 people are working to find sustainable solutions for Lego products. Over the past 3 years, material scientists and engineers tested over 250 variations of PET materials and hundreds of other plastic formulations. The result is a prototype that meets several of their quality, safety, and play requirements, including Lego's clutch power, which is how they stick together but so easily pull apart.
Yeah.
And they go on to say a couple more things about the program over the next. Well, I shouldn't say next. The article was a little bit older, but through 2022, Lego is in the midst of like a 3-year commitment to invest up to $400 million US to accelerate sustainable ambitions of the company. And back in March 2018, which I think we covered on this show as well, Lego announced their first plant-based plastics that were in fact Lego trees and plant pieces. And I'll have a link to that article as well. All of it can be found on lego.com about us in the sustainability section. There's a lot of interesting videos and articles there about what they're doing. And I really like the fact that a company as big as Lego is really leading the charge in this kind of stuff. I see it a lot online, some of the circles I travel about, like, we've got some picnic tables here in the province that are made out of recycled garbage bags, like grocery bags, the plastic grocery bags that most places don't have anymore. There's also a parking lot in Tantallon here locally that's got like mostly plastic asphalt in it because of it's been mixed in with the plastic recycled bags. So all these different ways that these non-biodegradable plastics are being reused and repurposed into things. And it's like, it's this interesting idea of like, this thing that we've come up with, plastic, is incredibly bad for the environment, but it's also incredibly durable and you can do all kinds of things with it. Now, in terms of Lego, they've got a lot of health and safety because things are played with. Little kids put them in their mouths sometimes. Like, there's all these different things that you have to consider when making this kind of a product. But when you've got outside products like a parking lot or a park bench, things that used to rot if they're made out of wood, if you can make them out of something that is essentially terrible for the environment, but if you need to make something that's just not going to break down ever, hey, a plastic park bench is probably a good way to go. So seeing this kind of stuff in Lego is really, really neat. And I'm excited to see what they come up with. I'm hoping that once the science is solid, I'm hoping that there's enough of a push that the infrastructure can be made so that these bottles and these plastic sources can be just streamed at companies like Lego and other companies that are making this kind of initiative to reuse the plastic into something else. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Citadel Cafe. You can get more information about the show and links to some of the things that we talked about at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and you can email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. That's all free. Word of mouth, however, is the easiest way to support the show. Just tell a friend about the Citadel Cafe and where they can go to listen to it. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I'm doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio at joelduggan.com. You can check out my other podcast all about Minecraft at thespawnchunks.com. And of course, you can follow me on social media at Joel Duggan and twitch.tv/Joel Duggan, where I've actually put up a couple of extra bonus streams this week. I've been doing this redstone farm that's making an absolute ton of moss blocks in Minecraft. It sounds really mundane, but when it starts to work, it's like a great ball machine. It's like a marble race. It's ridiculously fun. So check that out at twitch.tv/Joel Duggan. Lou, what are you up to online this week? Where can people find you?
Easiest place to find me is Zombies Ate My Podcast, where last week we talked about this last season of Fear the Walking Dead, where a nuclear bomb went off at the end of the episode. So that's going to be fun next season. And we might talk about a new TV show that just came up, that just put out its second season on Netflix.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.